I need to shave. Hello! So today I'm gonna do something a little different. A very loyal and friendly subscriber requested me a lot of poems to read and also a comic. But I will just do all the poems they requested me for today, for this video right here, and then maybe I'll try to do the comic. Mouse, it's incredible. I love that story, but a lot of copyright. But we'll see. I'll see if I can do it without getting copyright struck. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so today I'm going to start off with The War Prayer by Mark Twain. Alright, let's get it. The War Prayer. It was a time of great and exalting excitement. The country was up in arms. The war was on. In every beast burned the holy fire of patriotism. The drums were beating, the bands playing, the toy pistols popping, the bunched firecrackers hissing and spluttering. On every hand and far down the receding and fading spread of roofs and balconies, a fluttering wilderness of flags flashed in the sun. Daily the young volunteers marched down the wide avenue, gay and fine in their new uniforms. The proud fathers and mothers and sisters and sweethearts cheering them with voices choked with happy emotion as they swung by. Nightly the packed mass meetings listened, panting, to patriot oratory which stirred the deepest deeps of their heart, and which they interrupted at briefest intervals with cyclones of applause, the tears running down their cheeks the while. In the churches the pastors preached devotion to flag and country, and invoked the God of battles, beseeching his aid in our good cause, in outpourings of fervid eloquence which moved every listener. It was indeed a glad and gracious time, and the half-dozen rash spirits that ventured to disapprove of the war and cast a doubt upon its righteousness straightway got such a stern and angry warning that for their personal safety's sake they quickly shrank out of sight and offended no more in that way. Sunday morning came. The next day the battalions would leave for the front. The church was filled. The volunteers were there, their young faces alight with martial dreams. Visions of the stern advance, the gathering momentum, the rushing charge, the flashing sabers, the flight of the foe, the tumult, the enveloping smoke, the fierce pursuit, the surrender. Then home from the war, bronzed heroes, welcomed, adored, submerged in golden seas of glory. With the volunteers sat their dear ones, proud, happy, and envied by the neighbors and friends who had no sons and brothers to send forth to the field of honor. They were to win for the flag, or, failing, die the noblest of noble deaths. The service proceeded. A war chapter from the Old Testament was read. The first prayer was said. It was followed by an organ burst that shook the building, and with one impulse the house rose, with glowing eyes and beating hearts, and poured out that tremendous invocation. God the all-terrible, thou who ordainest, thunder thy clarion and lightning thy sword. Then came the long prayer. None could remember the like of it for passionate pleading and moving and beautiful language. The burden of its supplication was that an ever-merciful and benignant Father of us all would watch over our noble young soldiers, and aid, comfort, and encourage them in their patriotic work. Bless them, shield them in the day of battle and the hour of peril. Bear them in his mighty hand. Make them strong and confident, invincible in the bloody onset. Help them crush the foe. Grant to them and to their flag and country imperishable honor and glory. An aged stranger entered and moved with slow and noiseless step up the main aisle, his eyes fixed upon the minister, his long body clothed in a robe that reached to his feet, his head bare, his white hair descending in a frothy cataract to his shoulders, his seamy face unnaturally pale, pale even to ghastliness. With all eyes following him and wondering, he made his silent way. Without pausing, he ascended to the preacher's side and stood there waiting. With shut lids, the preacher, unconscious of his presence, continued his moving prayer. and at last finished it with the words, uttered in fervent appeal. Bless our arms, grant us the victory, O Lord and God, Father and protector of our land and flag. The stranger touched his arm, motioned him to step aside, which the startled minister did, and took his place. During some moments he surveyed the spellbound audience with solemn eyes, in which burned an uncanny light. Then, in a deep voice, he said, I come from the throne, bearing a message from Almighty God. The words smote the house with a shock. If the stranger perceived it, he gave no attention. He has heard the prayer of his servant your shepherd, and will grant it if such be your desire after I, his messenger, shall have explained to you its import, that is to say, its full import. For it is like unto many of the prayers of men, in that it asks for more than he who utters it is aware of, except he pauses and thinks. God's servant and yours has prayed his prayer. Has he paused and taken thought? Is it one prayer? No, it is two. One uttered, and the other did not. Both have reached the ear of him who heareth all supplications, the spoken and the unspoken. Ponder this. Keep it in mind. If you would beseech a blessing upon yourself, beware, lest without intent you invoke a curse upon your neighbor at the same time. If you pray for the blessing of rain on your crop which needs it, by that act you are possibly praying for a curse on some neighbor's crop which may not need rain and can be injured by it. You have heard your servant's prayer, the uttered part of it. I am commissioned by God to put into words the other part of it, that part which the pastor, and also you in your hearts, fervently prayed silently, and ignorantly and unthinkingly. God grant that it was so. You heard the words, grant us the victory, O Lord our God. That is sufficient. The whole of the uttered prayer is compact into those pregnant words. Elaborations were not necessary. When you have prayed for victory, you have prayed for many unmentioned results which follow victory, must follow it, cannot help but follow it. Upon the listening Spirit of God fell also the unspoken part of the prayer. He commandeth me to put it into words. Listen. Lord, our Father, our young patriots, idols of our heart, go forth in battle. Be thou near them. With them, in spirit, we also go forth from the sweet peace of our beloved firesides to smite the foe. O Lord our God, help us tear their soldiers to bloody shreds with our shells. Help us to cover their smiling fields with the pale forms of their patriotic dead. Help us to drown the thunder of the guns with the shrieks of their wounded, writhing in pain. Help us to lay waste their humble homes with a hurricane of fire. Help us wring the hearts of their unoffending widows with unavailing grief. Help us to turn them out, roofless with their little children, to wander unfriended in the wastes of their desolated land, in rags and hunger and thirst, sports of the sun flames in summer and icy winds of winter, broken in spirit, worn with travail, imploring thee for the refuge of the grave and denied it. For our sakes who adored thee, Lord, blast their hopes, blight their lives, protract their bitter pilgrimage, make heavy their steps, water their way with their tears, stain the white snow with the blood of their wounded feet. We ask it in the spirit of love, of him who is the source of love, and who is the ever-faithful refuge and friend of all that are sore beset and seek his aid with humble and contrite hearts. Amen. After a pause, Yea, have prayed it. If yea still desires it, speak. The messenger of the Most High waits. It was believed after that the man was a lunatic, because there was no sense in what he said. End of the War Prayer by Mark Twain. Okay, that was a good one. Next, we shall move on to From War is Kind, Do Not Weep Maiden, for War is Kind, by Stephen Crane. Do not weep, maiden, for war is kind, because your lover threw wild hands toward the sky, and the affrighted steed ran on alone. Do not weep, war is kind. Hoarse, booming drums of the regiment, little souls who thirst for fight. These men were born to drill and die. The unexplained glory flies above them. Great is the battle god, great and his kingdom, a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Do not weep, babe, for war is kind, because your father tumbled into the yellow trenches, raged at his breast, gulped and died. Do not weep, war is kind. Swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold. These men were born to drill and die. Point for them the virtue of slaughter. Make plain to them the excellence of killing, and a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Mother whose heart hung humble as a button on the bright splendid shroud of your son. Do not weep, war is kind. End of War is Kind by Stephen Crane. Next we'll move on to We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheek and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be over wise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us, while we wear the mask. We smile, but, O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but, oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. And that is the end of We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Next, I will move on to September 1918 by Amy Lowell. This afternoon was the color of water falling through sunlight. The trees glittered with the tumbling of leaves. The sidewalks shone like alleys of dropped maple leaves. And the houses ran along them, laughing out of square, open windows. Under a tree in the park, 2 little boys, laying flat on their faces, were carefully gathering red berries to put in a pasteboard box. Someday there will be no war. Then I shall take out this afternoon and turn it in my fingers, and remark the sweet taste of it upon my palate, and note the crisp variety of its flights of leaves. Today I can only gather it, and put it into my lunchbox, for I have time for nothing but the endeavor to balance myself upon a broken world. Alright, that's the end of September 1918 by Amy Lowell. I got a message from a quick sponsor, Untitled Goose Game. That's a good game. They're not paying me a penny to do this, but just get it, because you're a goose, and it's a freaking good game. Okay, now, let's move on to more poems. The next one is I Have a Rendezvous with Death by Alan Seeger. I have a rendezvous with death at some disputed barricade, when the spring comes back with rustling shade, and apple blossoms fill the air. I have a rendezvous with death, when spring brings back blue days and fair. It may be he shall take my hand, and lead me into his dark land, and close my eyes and quench my breath. It may be I shall pass him still. I have a rendezvous with death, on some scarred slope of battered hill, when spring comes round again this year, and the first meadow flowers appear. God knows 'twere better to be deep pillowed in silk and scented down, where love throbs out in blissful sleep, plus nigh to pulse and breath to breath, where hushed awakenings are dear. but I have a rendezvous with death. At midnight in some flaming town, when spring trips north again this year. And I to my pledged word am true. I shall not fail that rendezvous. Okay, that's the end of I Have a Rendezvous with Death by Alan Seeger. Next, we shall move on to, I love this one, Freedom by Langston Hughes. Alright, let's dive in. Freedom will not come today, this year, nor ever, through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet and own the land. I tire so of hearing people say, "Let things take their course, tomorrow is another day." I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed, planted in a great need. I live here too. I want my freedom, just as you. Alright, that's the end of Freedom by Langston Hughes. Alright, the next one's a short one. This is going to be The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner by Randall Jarrell. Or Jarrell. I don't know how to pronounce it. Randall Jarrell. We're going to go with that. Alright, let's dive in. From my mother's sleep I fell into the state, and I hunched in its belly till my wet fur froze. 6 miles from earth, loosed from its dream of life, I woke to black flak and the nightmare fighters. When I died, they washed me out of the turret with the hose. Alright, that's the end of The Ball Turret Gunner by Randall Jarrell. The next poem I will do is For the Union Dead by Robert Lowell. The old South Boston Aquarium stands in a Sahara of snow now. Its broken windows are boarded. The bronze weather-vane cod has lost half its scales. The airy tanks are dry. Once my nose crawled like a snail on the glass. My hand tingled to burst the bubbles drifting from the noses of the crowd, compliant fish. My hand draws back. I often sigh still for the dark downward and vegetating kingdom of the fish and reptile. One morning last March, I pressed against the new barbed and galvanized fence on the Boston Common. Behind their cage, yellow dinosaur steam shovels were grunting as they cropped up tons of mush and grass to gouge their underworld garage. Parking spaces luxuriate like civic sand piles in the heart of Boston. A girdle of orange, Puritan pumpkin-colored girders braces the tingling statehouse, shaking over the excavations as it faces Colonel Shaw and his bell-cheeked Negro infantry. On St. Gaudens' shaking Civil War relief, propped by a plank splint against the garage's earthquake. 2 months after marching through Boston, half the regiment was dead. At the dedication, William James could almost hear the bronze Negroes breathe. Their monument sticks like a fishbone in the city's throat. Its colonel is as lean as a compass needle. He has an angry, wren-like vigilance, a greyhound's gentle tautness. He seems to wince at pleasure and suffocate for privacy. He is out of bounds now. He rejoices in man's lovely, peculiar power to choose life and die. When he leads his black soldiers to death, he cannot bend his back. On 1,000 small-town New England greens, the old white churches hold their air of sparse, sincere rebellion. Frayed flags quilt the graveyards of the Grand Army of the Republic. The stone statues of the abstract Union soldier grow slimmer and younger each year. Wasp-waisted, they dove over muskets and mused through their sideburns. Shaw's father wanted no monument except the ditch where his son's body was thrown and lost with his niggers. The ditch is near. There are no statues for the last war here on Boylston Street. A commercial photograph shows Hiroshima boiling over a Mosler safe, the Rock of Ages, that survived the blast. Space is near. When I crouch to my television set, The drained faces of Negro schoolchildren rise like balloons. Colonel Shaw is riding on his bubble. He waits for the blessed break. The aquarium is gone. Everywhere, giant finned cars nose forward like fish. A savage servility slides by on Greece. Alright, that is the end of For the Union Dead by Robert Lowell. Next we will have The White Troops Had Their Orders, but the Negroes Look Like Men by Gwendolyn Brooks. They had supposed their formula was fixed. They had obeyed instructions to devise a type of cold, a type of hooded gaze. But when the Negroes came, they were perplexed. These Negroes looked like men. Besides, it taxed time and the temper to remember those congenital iniquities that caused disfavor of the darkness, such as boxed their feelings properly, complete to tags. A box for dark men and a box for other would often find the contents had been scrambled, or even switched. Who really gave two figs? Neither the earth nor heaven ever trembled, and there was nothing startling in the weather. Okay, that is the end of The White Troops Had Their Orders, but the Negroes Look Like Men by Gwendolyn Brooks. Alright, so next we'll move on to our final poem, which is Facing It by Yusef, Komunyakaa. My black face fades, hiding inside the black granite. I said I wouldn't, damn it, no tears. I'm stone, I am flesh. My clouded reflection eyes me like a bird of prey. My profile of night slanted against morning. I turn this way, the stone lets me go. I turn that way, I'm inside the Vietnam Veterans Memorial again, depending on the light to make a difference. I go down the 58,022 names, half expecting to find my own in letters like smoke. I touch the name Andrew Johnson. I see the booby trap's white flash. Names shimmer on a woman's blouse, but when she walks away, the names stay on the wall. Brushstrokes flash, a red bird's wings cutting across my stare. The sky. A plane in the sky. A white vet's image floats closer to me. Then his pale eyes look through mine. I'm a window. He's lost his right arm inside the stone. In the black mirror, a woman's trying to erase names. No. She's brushing a boy's hair. End of Facing It by Yusef, Komunyakaa. Alright, that's all of the war poems I'm going to do today, requested by a very pleasant subscriber. Thank you so much for all of that. I had a great time. And if anyone watching this enjoyed the production of this, if it helped them with anything, feel free to hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. If you have any requests on what I should read next, yeah, comment below. This was fun. I like doing this, like switching it up a bit. It can be a novel, a short story, a comic, anything. I'll read anything, I don't care. And if you want to stay updated on these recordings, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Alright guys, had a good time with this, and I'll see you tomorrow with another one. Until then, I'm out. Peace.